Okay, good evening. Today's daf is Chaf Beis. We're in the middle of a sugya around Chaf Aleph. Um, the Mishnah in Shkolim said that there was a Tanai Bezdin that the Kohanim could use the eitzim, they could use the salt. They could use the eitzim, they could use the salt. Shmuel said, "What does it mean they could use the salt? They can use the salt to salt their kabbanis, but not to eat using the salt." The Gemara questioned that. The Gemara said, "You're right. They could use their salt for what? For kachim, to eat their kachim, but they couldn't go ahead and use it to eat their chulin." And the Gemara then made it tzrichasa and said that the chara it's truma. How would truma get in there? They would eat truma to be more satiated. The bottom line is why was it necessary to make a tanai that the Kahanim could use it? Why would you think the Kahanim couldn't use it? We went ahead, we had a limud that the tzibur could use it. So once the Kahanim are no different than the tzibur, so we're holding, why was it necessary to make a tanai for the Kahanim to be able to use the salt? And that's where we're up to. We're up to the first white line on Chaf Aleph on the base. So again, we're coming to say why the Kahanim, they had to make a tanai bezdin that the Kahanim could use the salt, because there was a svar to say not. So Amalei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. Hachi kam Rav Shisha Brei de Ravidi. Like Nitzrucha, right? We need that this Mishnah that says that Besdin had to make a Tanai for them to use the salt, El ben Bukhri, only according to Ben Bukhri, or we have Ben Kuvri, there's a Gerson the Aruch, did none. This is in Masech the Idias. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Heyed ben Bukhri, Biyavne. Yavne is when after the Churban bias, they came to Yavne v'chach Motzeha. That was one of the requests that Yochanan ben Zakkai made from Vespasian. Give me a Bukhri biyavne. Hey ben Bukhri biyavne kol koyin sheshoikel. Any koyin that gives a shkolim ain't a chayte. It's not a bad thing. It's not a chait. In other words, you see from here that when they would have parsha shkolim, they would go ahead and collect the shkolim, which really would purchase the animals and various materials needed for kachim, that the Kahanim did not have to go ahead and indulge. And the Gemara says that kol over al pekudim mimachzah shekel kodesh. Anyone who passes by the counter. Now we know that the Shevet Levi guys did not go ahead and pass by the counter. So since Shevet Levi did not pass by the counter, they were held that they didn't have to go ahead and give the shekel. But that's lechatchila. But the Eved, if they gave it, it's not a chayta. And we won't say that what they're doing something wrong. Rashi says, look at Rashi, ein chayta, midakamar ein chayta, mechlal dechatchila loy mechayev. When it says ein chayta, you're not doing something wrong. Initially, you see they were mechayev. The time in Farish b'shech the shkolim d'chsiv kol oiver al pekudim b'shevi levi loy nifkad. Every levy was not counted the same way by the coins. V'yafagav deikol meima hamaisi chulun lazar. Even though it's hard to say that since he's bringing an animal, that's not purchased. That no, he didn't have a piece of the action, guys. If he didn't have a piece of the action, so the kedusha of the animal came as a result of the coins being kaddish. And if he doesn't have a piece of the action of the coins, therefore, what the animal the animal purchased with the shekel that was not kaddish would be what we call nazara. I feel nonetheless, we're going to make it tonight. Best to make it tonight to take care of it. That's the Ben Bukhri. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai said, no, loy, ki el kol kain shein shekel chayta. And he learns kol oiver al pekudim is speaking about what? Is speaking about the Yamsuf. Kol oiver is kol oiver, anyone who passed by the Yamsuf, guys, gives the money. And the Kohen went through the Yamsuf also, they would give the money. That would be the kol oiver, not kol oiver by the counters, kol oiver, the Yamsuf, anyone who passed by the Yamsuf would have to go ahead and give. Ella, now, so why did the Kahanim think they didn't have to give? Ella Shakahanim Darshim Mikrozel Atzman. They made this drasha for their own hana. The Chol Minchas Koyin Kolel Tiyeh. All Minchas, the difference in a Minchas of a Koyin and a Minchas of a Yisrael. Yisrael has the Koymitz and all the processes we've been discussing. The Mincha of the Koyin was burnt. Mincha of the Koyin was burnt. Chol Minchas Koyin Kolel Tiyeh. Like Soicha, don't eat it now. They would eat from the lechem aponim. They would eat from what? From the shtei lechem. So they were saying, right? How could they possibly go ahead and eat from it? If you're telling me that it's theirs, then it should be burnt. If it's theirs, then what? it should be burnt. So therefore, they felt that they should not go ahead. What they felt that they felt that what how could they give money and buy it, and then the money that they give is going to make it their carbon, and if it's their carbon, how could they eat it? Because it would have to be burnt. So that was their reasoning. So Ula ben Bukhri. Now, according to Ben Bukhri, again, we're arriving at the teretz. According to Ben Bukhri, that the Bezdin had to make a tanai that the Kahanim could use the salt. Right? We're adding up to that. We're just going through the dialogue between Rabbi Yochanan and Ben Bukhri. So Ben Bukhri kivin l'chatchila mechayev asuyeh. Right? Since l'chatchila is not mechayev to bring it, ki ma'isi nami chaytuhu, the kamaylu chul mazara. Therefore, what again? Anything purchased with them would be chul mazara. Says well, the Maisi, so the Chayra, what would they do? The Maisi, Masal Helmet Sibur. So they go ahead and to avoid this problem, they would go ahead and they would give the money to the Tzibur, and then the Tzibur would go ahead and use it, and Memela, it didn't come directly from the Kahanim. If it didn't come directly from the Kahanim, it would not be Chulun Bazara. Now, Sal Kedai de Chamina. Now we're getting down to the business now. Sal Kedai de Chamina, I would have thought, Ki Zachalu Rachman al Yisrael. Who is the Zeicha salt? Who are they Zeicha salt to? The Yisrael, the Islay Lishka. Right? They have part of the Lishka of money that they would purchase salt with. Rashi, Kizach Ale Rachman Lishka, Limalayach Kabanam, Mishal Hegdish. The Yisrael who the Zachilahu. Mishum the Islay Lishka. Klaimar, Shem Nasu Ashkalim Belishka. They put the Shkalim in the Lishka in the Fort Knox. Shemihin nikne hamelach. They would purchase melach with that. Al kahanu shen chayavim lishkol loy. But the kahanu weren't required to give. They didn't have a piece of the action. And therefore it says let's get. I jumped the gun. Ki zachli rachmana yisrael the islay lishka lekahanim the leslay lishka leizachli rachmana kamash malon. That Bezdin went ahead and said, listen, you have a piece of the action. So therefore, the whole Gemara, yesterday's Gemara, was predicated upon the Tanai Bezdin that gave the money that gave the Melach to the Kahanim. Why did he have to give the Melach to the Kahanim? The Melach belonged to the Tzibur, and the Kahanim any worse than the Tzibur. Like Ben Bakri, they were worse than the Tzibur because they didn't have to go ahead and give them money. They didn't have to give them money. They didn't have a piece of the action. Kol oivel pekudim. So they were pata. So therefore, since they didn't have a piece of the action, I would think they could not use the salt. So therefore, it says they Tanai Bezdin said that not only could you use the salt, you could use the eitzim as well. Why was it pashit that the tzibah that a person who bought a carbon did not have to bring his own wood? The Tanya. I might think a person says it's upon me to bring an oila. Yavi eitzim mitach beisai. He'd have to bring his own. Kiderach shemevi nisachim mitach beisai. Just like he brings his nisachim from his house. So just like he brings his nisachim from the house. I would say he has to bring what? He brings the own yayin, I'd say bring your own wood. Talmud loymar, ala eitzim asher ala eish, asher ala mizbeach. The eitzim that are on the eish and the mizbeach, this makes a relationship between eitzim and the eish and the mizbeach. Ma mizbeach mishal tzibur, just like the mizbeach and mishal tzibur, af eitzim ve'eish mishal tzibur. So too, that's from the tzibur. So we have a hekesh to the Mizbeach to go ahead and say that's why Bnei Yisrael do not have to bring their own wood. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Lazar ben Shemuel, another Rabbi Lazar, two famous Rabbi Lazars. Ma Mizbeach shlein shtamish by hedyet, just like Mizbeach that a hedyet never used it. Af eitzim ve'eish shlein shtamish by hedyet. So to eitzim, so to the eitzim and eish is that was never used by a hedyet. In both cases, l'chayra, they have both cases. They don't have to bring it from the house. So my nafkamina, whether you could use new wood or not, right? But in other words, according to Rav Shimon, all I cared about was what that it was not. It was from the tzibur. According to Rabbi Lazar ben Shemuel, it had to be what? It had to be not used. It had to be not used. So therefore, new wood would be nafkamina. The new wood would not be able to be used by what? By the carbon of a yachid. Will not be able to use what? He won't be able to use the new wood. Excuse me, you would need new wood. I kept on saying, no, you would need new wood. Excuse me, guys. You would need new wood, right? Because he says, just like the Mizbeach wasn't used by a head yet, so too wood that wasn't used by a head yet. So it had to be wood that was never used. According to Rabbi Shimon, you could burn with wood that was used. It doesn't make a difference. You could use wood that wasn't used. Freidig Moed Vatiki Lo, you can't use used wood for carbon, right? Siv. And this is describing at the end of Shmuel Beis, where David buys from a Ravna Hayivusi, he's buying the Makam HaMikdash. It says, Vayomer Ravna el David, Yikach v'yale Doni HaMelech, Chatoy Beinov, Rei HaBakar Lo'oila, V'marigim Chli Bakar Leitzim. The Bakar should be for animals, for Kurbanis, and the Marigin and the Kli Bakar should be Eitzim. So l'chayra, it was used. You're speaking about Marigan and that were used. It says Machanami b'chadati. So and for the Gemara, no, it's speaking about new Marigan. My Marigan. What is Marigan? Amaula. We had this at the end of Zvachim. If it sounds familiar. Amaula mita shel tarbel. My mita shel tarbel. Rabbi Yehuda Iza the kurkisa the dashi bei dashtoi. They would go ahead and take a iron. They would take a board. They would put Yeseidos, they would put kurkusa, they would put nails in it, and they would put on top of it an iron goat, a heavy iron goat, and that would weigh it down. And that's the mita shel tarbel, and they would use that to go ahead and thresh the grain. Amar Rabbi says, "Ma'ikra hine samtich lemoireg chorish chadish bal papiyos tadish harim." So this is a pasuk in Rishaya, and the pasuk is describing hine samtich lemoireg chorutz. I made you like a moirid choretz. Choretz means it's a very beautiful an engraved piece that was used for threshing, chadash, right? That can go ahead and do a good job. Bal papiyos, it was very sharp. Tadish harim, you can go ahead and it could destroy the malchei of the umas ha'olam. That's what the pasuk means according to the Mefarshim. Okay, that's it. So therefore, this din that we said in the Mishnah, that you had to make a tanai for the salt, it was according to Ben Bukhri, who said that the Kahanim did not have to give the shekel. So therefore, since they didn't have to give the shekel, they didn't have a piece of the action of the salt. Therefore, they made a tanai that they could use the salt. But that's the pshat. Okay, next Mishnah, Geshmak. Now, there's a difference between every mincha has different components. The basic mincha, guys, is one loig to one silas. One leg of oil to one isarin of what? Of silas. Silas is isarin, and the ratio is 1 to 1. If it was a minchas kohanim or the mincha of a kain gadol, minchas chavitin, it was 3 to 1. So there was more oil in the mincha of the kohanim than there was in the oil of the hedyet. Says the Mishnah, Nis'arev kumtza b'koimetz chaverta. Let's say the kaimitz of one individual got mixed with the kaimitz of another individual, or b'minchas kahanim, or it got mixed in the mincha v'kayim, or b'minchas kayim mashiach, that's the minchas chavitin, or b'minchas nesachim, these are all burnt. Ksheira, they're kasha, it's not a problem, right? Since they're all burnt, it's not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'minchas kayim mashiach, if the mincha of a Jew, a regular hedyet, that has a 1 to 1 ratio, gets mixed in with the koyin Mashiach and a koyin or a regular koyin, which is a 3 to 1 ratio, you got more oil. Shazu b'lilasa ava, the mincha of Yisrael is thick because it's only a 1 to 1 ratio. It doesn't have as much oil. Lezu b'lilasa racha, and this is thin because it's a 3 to 1 ratio. The haim boil is zumazu, and they boilay one from the other. So what would the problem be? Let's see Rashi, guys. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, in Mis'ari v'koimetz b'minchas nesachim, minchas koim Mashiach psula. Fisha koimetz the minchas nidvas Yisrael belila ava. It's a mixture that's thick. Loig lisarin. It's the ratio of 1 loig to 1 isarin of flour. U'minchas koim Mashiach minchas nesachim belilas and racha. It's thinner. Shleisha loig and lisarin. 3 to 1 ratio. Yichsib minchas nesachim belula b'revias hahin. So a quarter of 12, a hin is 12, so it's 3. V'yolav chavitin minei, and we learned b'minchas chavitin koim Mashiach is shleish lugan lisarin b'perkat cheles. Vein boilers zumizu. So now, what's the main problem? They're going to be they're going to go ahead and absorb from each other. Hakoimetz boilea mi minchas nesachim, the thick minchas Yisrael that has more soilus because it's less oil, will go ahead and absorb the oil from the minchas kain. The havile ribu shamna, and as a result, you can have a more shemen than the loig. Uminchas nesachim nami psula, the havile chasa shamna. So according to the Rashi, the way we're learning, guys, you have the mincha of Yisrael, the mincha of kain. The mincha Yisrael will absorb more oil, so now you have a ribu shemen, and the mincha of the kain will be less oil. Now you have a chisaron, so you don't have the full amount. So it really should say psulois, right? Psula means one is puzzle. Really, they're both puzzle. Okay, but the reason that is consistent form. Okay, so the shot in the Mishnah, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is that boile zumizu, since they're boile one from the other, meaning the soilus of the soilus absorbs the oil of what of the mincha of the kayin. Now it has too much oil, and the mincha of the kayin now has less oil, and therefore, since they're boilei zumizu, they each it's really they're boilei zumizu. One is chas and one is yeser. Therefore, they're psula according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, Taran Hasan, a Mishnah in Zvachim. Dam shenis arev b'mayim. Dam gets mixed with water. Can you do zrika? Im yesh maris dam. If it still looks like dam, then kasha. It's kasha lizraik. We won't say that the water takes away from the dam. It still has the same dam. This arev biyayin, if it gets mixed in with wine, red wine, ki'ilu humayim, will view the wine as if it's water, and therefore, if it still would go ahead and have its proportion, it would look like dam. It has a look of dam. This arev b'dam behema, a behema of chulin, oy b'dam chaya, a dam chaya of, let's say, a deer, right? It doesn't go down this beach. Royin Isai will go ahead and do the same thing. Kilu humayim will view the blood of the chulin, the animal, and the blood of the chaya as if it's water. And if the kashim still maintains its mara of dam, you be kashal l'srika. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ein dam mevatel dam. Even proportionally, fellas, if it wouldn't have the appearance of dam, ein dam mevatel dam. You can't. So in other words, the dam of a behema chaya or a behema chulin cannot be mevatel dam. Ein dam mevatel dam. Okay, this is Rabbi Yehuda's shita of min b'mino is leibatel. Tonight we're going to get into something we did a little bit in the Darim, but we're going to do a little bit tonight because it's a shorter daf, and this is really the place to do it. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Ushnei mikra echad darshu. Sai the Chachamim, who said that it has to look like dam, and Sai Rabbi Yehuda that min b'mino leibatel, they both darshan the same pasuk. It says v'lokach midam hapar or midam hasoyer. It says by the kohen by Yom Kippur. After he did the matanis, the zrikos of the par, and after he did the zrikos of the seir, he mixed them together. We had a machlokes when the mixture took place. Did it take place before the kronos or before the gagam mizbeach? But either way, it says v'lokach midam hapar midam hasoyer. However you do it, it's known shedama shel par merubim dama shel sayer. And obviously, a par is a larger animal, so proportionally, you have much more blood of a par than you have of a sayer. Yet it says you take from the dam of the par and the dam of the sayer, meaning they're considered separate. Rabbanan Savi, Rabbanan are of the opinion on the base. Mikan la'oilin she'em mevatnum zeh. From here, those that are oil on the mizbeach, they're not mevatel each other. In other words, it's not pshat min b'minoi is no black bottle, and that's why it has that separate entity. It's because anything that's oil on the mizbeach, right, is not mevatel. So the dam of the par and the dam of the soyer, if it's only looking at the dam aspect, min b'minoi is not bottle. That's the chachamim shita. The reason why over here it's not bottle, in other words, according to logistically, the dam of the soya should not exist. It should be bottle al yedei wat, the dam of the par. Why does it exist? Because since they're both oilen, they both go up on the mizbeach, they're both spritzed on the mizbeach, Therefore, what they are, what they're not bottle. It's a din unique to oil mizbeach, but not a din min b'minoi. Mikan oil shem bevatlan zeh. Okay, says Rashi, v'hani domim d'masnisan, right? The dam of the chaya, right? The zvachim oil ninu v'loy mevatlu adadi, right? The dam of the Mishnah, the zvachim, the since the oila, since the oil to the mizbeach, it's really not oiling, right? It's really funny because the dam of a chay is not oil in mizbeach, right? I mean, Bishleim, Behema Chulin is not oil in Mizbeach. So if you look, there's another Girsa over here. Lav oilin ninu, umevatle adodi, v'girsa tzen kotshim, chulin ninu umevatle. It's chulin and the mevatel. It's chulin, so you'll be mevatel the Behema of chulin, you'll be mevatel the chaya, you mevatel. But for all intents and purposes, let's keep the Girsa we have. Mikan, oilin, those that are oilin, ein mevatel zem. Notice, guys, vis-a-vis the par so'ir, and vis-a-vis what the power of the power of the soyer is, they're both oil and mizbeach. They're not mevatel each other. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda savar mikan lemin b'mina sheina batel. Rabbi Yehuda says from here we'll learn out that min b'mina is not batel. That's why even though there's more par dam of the par, doesn't make a difference. They're both blood, and since they're both blood, they're not going to be mevatel. Rabbanan savri mikan lo oil and shein mevatel says the dil mishum de min b'minahu. How did the Chachamim know it's as ein oil mevatlan? That oil mevatlan. How do you know it's not min b'minoi? It says iyash mina min b'minoi v'lo yash mina oilin kedukarmit. If you just would have told me a din of min b'minoi and not told me a din in Zvochim, in Srika, I would say it's min b'minoi. Hashtidash mina oilin mishum de oilin. Pirish. If you wanted to tell me a din of min b'minoi, you didn't have to put it in a kachim situation, guys. You could have put it in a tarubas, a regular tarubas situation. It could have been in Yoredeya. It didn't have to be in say the kachim. If you're just telling me min b'minos leibato, you didn't have to go ahead and put it and frame it in the linyan dam gets mixed in with other dam. Why did you do that? It must not have to do with min b'mino. It must be do that what that ain't that oilim mevatlan zezeh, that ain't oilim mevatlan zezeh. Guys, you good? You hear me saying, if you tell me it's just min b'mino is not batal, why do you have to tell me in a hechmet timsa of spritzing? Just tell me a regular hechet timsa that it's not, one's not mevatel the other. Any min b'mino. It doesn't have to be linyan mat. It could be, again, we have this gets mixed with this. You have meat that gets mixed with chalev. It's a kid min b'mino, it's not min b'mino. It's machloikis, right? But it has nothing to do with kachim. Why do you tell me this din in kachim? It must be why, because the din in oilin, not a din in min b'mino. And for the Gemara, the dilma ada ikka min b'mino v'oilin, maybe both. Maybe both. You need both. It's my kasha. That's takashver. Rabbi Yehuda savar mikan lemin b'mina sheina batel. From here, the fact that it's Rabbi Yehuda says that even if the yayin, the water, doesn't make a difference, right? It's because min b'mina, right? You have the dam of a chaya. The dam is dam. So therefore, even if it doesn't look the same, you don't have to go ahead and make any evaluation. Once it's dam, that's it. And therefore, mikan lemin mina shena batal. V'dilma mishum de'oilin hu. After all, the Chacham had a real taina, right? That real taina. Why did you tell me in case of what of kachim? It says when yash min an oilin min b'sheina mino kiddukamrit. If you would have told me oilin min b'sheina minoi, if you would have told me a din of min b'sheina mino, then I'd agree with you. But hashli dashmina min b'mino. Now that you told me the case of oilin by min b'minoi, we should min b'minoi hu. In other words, he reverses it. He says the following. He says, if you wanted to tell me the din of oilin, why did you dafka tell me the din of min b'mino? You could have told me min b'sheina mino. Hell, it must be you told me min b'mino because it's nothing to do with oilin. It has to do with min b'mino. Let's ask the same question. The dilma adika, both min b'mino of oilin, says, kasha, einachinami, that is fair. Einachinami, that is fair. Okay, let this din, but this machloikas min b'mino, there's a Yesoidistic Ran in the Dharam. There's two Rans in the Dharam that are very, very famous. One is the Ran that says that why the Mikdash was destroyed because we didn't go ahead and it brings the Rebbeinu Yoina that we didn't go ahead and make brachas before. We learned That's the one Ran. And then the second Ran is this huge Ran, and when it discusses the Davashesh Matirin, why something that right now it's Asa, but will be Mutta, why what? Why it's why it's not Batal. Why it's not Batal. So it's a huge Ran. I extrapolated one piece of it, and the one piece I extrapolated, uh, we're not going to go into Davashesh Matirin. We're just going to go and see this machloikus. The Ran explains this machloikus in a very, very palpable way. It really makes a lot of sense. So this is a Ran. Okay, says that you see the word. I can't make it bigger, guys. I can't make this bigger because then you won't be able to see anything. Or maybe I'll do this. Okay, I'll do this. No, I'm missing words. Okay, the Kachnerali. He's explaining. The Ran is coming to explain why Davish Yesh Matir and something that right now is also but will be mutter is not batal. The Kachnerali timely shall dava. This is the reason why Davish Yesh Matir is not batal. Guy, you see, you see where the pointer is. See where the pointer is, David Friedman. You see where I'm pointing? Good. The Chazina l'Rabban Rabbi Yehuda. We find that the Rabban Rabbi Yehuda defligu b'min b'minai. Ibatul oiloi. They argue by min b'minai if it's batul or not. V'aminu perika kometz rabba. That's what our daf today. The shnei mikra echad darsha. They both darshan from the same pasuk. The chsiv v'lokach midam hapar u'midam hasoyer she'afal pisha domi shel pam meruba kari le'dam hasoyer alma le'batul. U'kesav Rav Yehuda dahainu taima mishum the min b'minai le'batul lefisha kol dava shu doimu lechaveroi. Anything that is similar to its colleague, right? Einay machlishai, it doesn't weaken it, umivatloi and nullify it. Elamamidai, it establishes it, umachzikai, and it strengthens it. So in other words, if you have something min b'mina that's usser, and now you put another min, it's not going to go ahead and take away that usser. It's going to make it more usser. It's going to make it more powerful. Elamamidai v'chziko umishum hachi sfir Rabbi Yehuda bikulai. Rabbi Yehuda holds b'chola tarakula isuroi de min b'minoi leibatel. The isra of min b'minoi is leibatel. Why? Because it's doing the opposite. Instead of nullifying it, it's strengthening it. You can hear this such a svara, guys, right? Nullification is, let's say you're dissipating something. You have an acid. You put water on the acid, and it's going to go ahead and weaken the acid. If you go ahead and you take more acid and put it in, even though it's, let's say one's sulfuric acid and one is another acid, it's going to go ahead and strengthen the acid. It's not going to make it less. Rabbanan le mashmalu hachi. This guys. This is Yisaydi. Rabbanan le mashmalu hachi. That what min b'minoi, that one strengthens the other. The mikom makom min b'minoi de issa v'heta min b'minoi of something that's us and something that's mutter ain't doimim zel is there. They're not comparable. Kivin dechad asa v'chad shari. Since one is maser and one's mutter, they're not the same. She'ein roi leilech achad dimyoinoi be'etzem. Don't go after the physical compatibility. Go with the fact that they're both blood. Ella achachi lukon be'isa v'heta. Don't look at the physical, guys. Look at the spiritual. Look at the status. One is asa, one is mutter. And that makes a lot. So therefore, it's why do you look at by min b'minai? Like Rabbi Yehuda, you look at the physical mitzias. So therefore, why it's not batal? Like the chachamim, you don't look at the physical mitzias. You look at the law. This one's muta and this one's asa. Elahainu time with the dama par ein mavatal dama sayer. Not to do with min b'minai. Mishum dekivim the shneim oilin. Since they both go on the mizbeach, kloimer sheksherim lizrika. They're both kosher to zrika. Ain't mevatl zeh. They're not mevatl each other because they're oilin. Just like Rabbi Yehuda goes after the physical mitzias, how they're both the same. The Rabbanan go after the comparison of the heter. So what's the heter over here, guys? They both go on the Mizbeach. Ulefikach kol shechalukim be'isa v'heter afila b'min b'minoi batal. The havile kimin b'she'enai minai. Because therefore it's like min b'she'enai minai. Because just because physically they look the same, just because physically they look the same, they're really not the same. And that's why Mishum Hachi Amina Davishish Matirin, not the Rabbanan, that Mishum Chumel of Yehuda, that's not Batal. The Kimin Shein Davis Echolok Min Aheta, Lagamri, Beis of Heta, it's not right, because at the end it's going to be Mutta. In other words, basically he says Geshmak, guys. By Davishish Matirin, you don't have that mitzias of one's us and one's Mutta. Right now, right, right now, right, you go at the end, they're both going to be the same. Right now, it's asa. So now it's not the same. But eventually, it's going to be mutta. So therefore, davar matirin, we don't. It's different than what than a regular seveheta. If you have a piece of meat that's treif and a piece of meat that's kosher, that right, that's min b'shein amino according to the chachamim. But if you have a beitza shenol of yontif and a beitza that wasn't born on yontif, right? This beitza shenol of yontif right now, since in the end it's going to be mutta, I'll view it as min amino, and therefore it's not batal. Very, guys, it's very Yisaydi. Now that you know this Gemara, it's a beautiful hezbollah of. Let's go. Let's see it again. We have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that what it brings a pasuk with Dam Soyer. It says the reason in our Mishnah that you can go ahead and put everything up is oilin not mevatin each other. The Mishnah in Zvachim that says that the Stama Par that Stama Soyer, Rabbi the Chachamim say, I don't care that they're both dam. That doesn't make it min b'minoi. But min b'minoi, according to me, is what? Min b'minoi, according to me, is one's aser and one's mutter. That's that. I look at what is. I look at its halachic status. I don't look at its physical metzius. So I can't tell you, therefore, since by every min b'minoi, I look at its halachic status, a piece of kosher meat, a piece of treif meat, by dam seir and dam of the par. Now, they're both mutter now, guys, right? They're both mutter. But since I hold the kol terakula min b'minoi is batal, over here also, that can't be a reason that it's not batal. There must be a different reason. What's a different reason? Because they're both oilin. Since they're both oilin, guys, they're considered mutter b'mutter. Oilin means that they have the same halacha. That's what oilin does. Oilin makes it the same halacha. Once it says the Chacham, I don't care about the fact that one is blood and the other one's blood. I care about the fact that what is the halacha. Since they're both oilin, they're both mutter. Since they're both mutter, great. But now you have a yisoid in kol hatarikula. When the Chacham say min b'minoi is like batal, it's because really min b'minoi is min b'einai minoi. Because one's aser and one's mutter. Aser and mutter are two different things. Guys, how are we doing? It's a beautiful, simple. He spoke like an achron. He spoke really clear. The Ran exactly what the difference is between the two, and that's pshat in our mission. That's pshat in this Gemara, and I thought it was very wichtig to share that with you. Okay, we have a steerer now in Rabbi Yehuda. What's the steerer in Rabbi Yehuda? Says the Gemara Tan. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Rabbi Yehuda says, "The minchas kayin Mashiach, or the minchas nesachim psula." Why? Shezu b'lilasa ava, bezu b'lilasa racha. This one has soyless and not so much oil, and this one has a lot of oil. So therefore, the oil that has a lot of oil is going to go into the one that doesn't have so much oil. It's going to be chaser, and that one's going to be yeser. Guys, are oil min b'minoi? Is min b'minoi le batal? So what? So he says to himself. Rabbi Yehuda says to himself. Says the Gemara, right? Who cares if they absorb from each other? Min b'minayhu. It's shemen v'shemen, guys. It's oil and oil. So oil and oil, min b'minay, according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, is not batal. It's not batal. So l'chayra, you have a steer in Rabbi Yehuda. If you're telling me the shemen, right? Okay, now there's a third entity over here, guys. What's that third entity? The silas, the flour. Okay, this flour. So this is the yisoid from Chulin that we're going to see Bez Hashem in the Hilchos Taruvis. Amar Rava, K'sav Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Shu Min B'minoi V'Davar Acher. You have Min B'minoi and something else. You have Shemen and Shemen, guys. That's Min B'minoi. You also have the oil. You also have the flour of the Minchas Yisrael. You have that thick flour of the Minchas Yisrael. Now, So you have min b'minoi, oil and oil, v'davar acher, salik es minoi, kimi she'enoi. You remove the minoi, the shemen, as if it's not there, and then the Ushe'ena minoi rabbi love mevatloi. And the she'ena minoi then is marble and long. So now, so the kaimetz has extra oil, right? The kaimetz has extra oil, and now the extra oil is going to go ahead and the kaimetz is going to move after that oil. Here, guys, look at me. You have oil, but you have oil and kaimetz. So your kasher is it's min b'minoi. So says Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rava. That Rava explains Rabbi Yehuda that anything is min b'minoi v'davar acher. You have shemen v'shemen v'davar acher. You have the davar acher. Salik es mina k'mish einoi. Take away what? Take away the oil as if it's not there. Now you have this, and this soilus will go ahead and be mevatel this, and therefore now you're missing oil from here. And that's why. Okay, let's see Rashi. Min b'minoi shem v'shemen v'davar acher soilus. Salik es minoi. Take away the shemen, nidava, kamisha einoi. View the shemen of the carbon nidava like it's not there. V'nimsa soilasai shel kaimitz. Now the soilus of the kaimitz, rabba al shemen. I'll be with you in a second. Rabba al shemen hanivla. It'll go ahead and increase over the shemen that is what? That is absorbed by umivatla. And the soilus will go ahead and take the shemen from the other carbon and be mevatel it. Yes, David.
Isn't there flour in the other menachos?
Again, I think but it's it's very thin. In other words, it's very thin. That you can't mix the av you have the presence of the flour there, but it seems that the other one, the presence is not there. It's because it's so thin because it's 3-to-1 ratio.
Oh, according to 3-to-1.
It's a 3-to-1. This is 1-to-1. That was his svara. That was his svara. Okay, that was his svara.
Okay. But it was still called min b'mino, even though it was thin. No.
What was the reason? What's the reason given by Rabbi Yehuda that they boileya from each other, right? So it doesn't say directionally is the one that's less being boileya from the thicker one, or the one that's thick being boileya from the thinner one. So obviously, it's the one that's thick is being boileya from the thinner one. So we're not counting the soilus of that thinner one because it's the oil that's being absorbed by the thicker one. Fred the Gemara, it's min b'mino, it's shemen b'shemen, right? And it's shemen b'shemen. It doesn't seem like the soilus over here we're taking into account. Don't take that soilus that's mixed into account. And therefore we're going to say that salik es mina kishmei, take away the oil of the nadava, and now you only have soilus, and now the soilus will be mevatel the shemen. Again, you don't look at the physical mitzias. You look at the physical mitzias. It's 3-to-1 ratio. That's what he said. According to you guys, it doesn't even start. This is flour. This is shemen. This is flour. This is shemen. What are you doing with the ratios? I mean, the Gemara, the Mishnah. What are you guys doing with the Mishnah? The Mishnah said this is ava and this is not, right? The Mishnah said it. I didn't say it. So obviously, if it's more thinner, it's racha. It's thinner. It's the shemen that is, and whatever flour you have is mixed in there, and therefore you have the shemen going into being absorbed. And even if you have some soilus being absorbed, so you have some soilus being absorbed. But again, 3-to-1 is a 3-to-1 ratio, guys. 1-to-1 versus 3-to-1. Think about it. Okay. Anyway, everyone should have a good night.